So, hello everyone. This is a tutorial about generally how to increase your damage in the game of Tale of Immortal. And so I will separate this video into several parts. First, I will introduce you how to increase your attack, because your attack value is the most basic thing you can do to increase your damage. Like what are the ways and what are the most important sub-skills in your attack mind skill. And then I will talk about how to briefly introduce several ways to reduce your cooldown of your skills, because the main way of how to reduce your cooldown of your special skill to reach 0 CD, I already have a separate video about it. I will put a link of this video in the descriptions. And then I will talk about different ways to amplify the damage, mainly about fairy flames, which I know I have already talked about it in my fire build tutorial video, but because this is so important, I would like to especially take this out into this video as well, and I will explain why I don't think fairy flame amplification is an abuse. And finally, I will talk about what's the ways to increase your critical damage. So let's start. And so this is my character, and as you can see, I have attack which is 17k, and I am a transcendent late. This is probably very close to the high risk attack you can theoretically reach in this game, without using any modes. I mean, actually, in order to reach this attack, you will probably need to use a cheat, because the chance you actually get this much attack is very low. I mean, I can tell you my character here, because I am doing videos, I am using a cheating engine in order to show you what the maximum effects of the build can be. And so the main thing coming out of this to make this high attack is from your mind skill. So as I mentioned before, actually each categories of mind skill, they have their special names. For attack, it's always called move, so some move. And if I remove this mind skill, and my attack becomes 9k. So that this move itself have already brings me more than 7,000k. And yeah, actually I am supposed to use this one, right? And you can see that this one even brings me another 500 compared to the previous one. And this is because different mind skills, different sub skills in this move mind skill are very important, have different effects. So the most important mind sub skill you need to have is the fourth one. For every 3 martial art points, your attack will increase. So the numbers here are according to my realm, so transcendent. And if you are at lower realm, I don't think you can ever reach every 3 martial points. But the idea is the same. And you can see that, so the second sub-skill, that's the highest maximum attack value you can get from a standard attack sub-skill, which is 451 at transcendent. However, if you see that you can get all martial skill points at 999, and you have 6 of them, which means for every 3 points your attack increased by 1, that makes you this one single sub-skill can give you 2000 attack. And the next one, which are important sub-skill, is for every 280 maximum vitality points, so HP, your attack will increase by 1. So theoretically, because right now my character have about 340k vitality, so every 280, which means this itself will bring me more than 1000 attack as well. But obviously this depending on your vitality, so it depends on how good a sutra, so a vitality mind skill you have. And you have a good sutra, this sub skill will bring you more attack. But I think there are some bit weird point here that sometimes the maximum vitality point was not really taken into account. I think someone did a calculation, so it's not all 300k vitality was accounted into it. But still, brings you more than 1000 attack, and that is more than double of a standard attack sub-skill. And apart from these two, you can also have, for example, the next one is the 8th one. When any of your martial arts stats reach 950, your attack will increase by 902. And also when your maximum energy, so MP, which is 17k, your attack reached by 902. You can also have another sub-skill, which is when your maximum focus reaches, I think, 17k as well, your attack will increase 902. And technically, so in total there are 5 special sub-skills in your move which can get you much higher attack. So best one, martial art point, every 3 one give you 2k. And then next one, maximum vitality, HP, give you more than 1k. Then the other 3, so martial arts per stats, maximum MP and maximum focus give you 900. Each of them will be double amount of attack you get from a standard attack sub-skill. But it is very, very difficult to find any of those, sub-skills in a move. Usually, I would say you can, in a normal like standard game, you probably won't find even one single of them, those special 5. If you have found 3 of the special 5 sub-skills, it is a very good move mind skill. You can use it in basically kind of already min-maxed your character around that realm. And if you have got 4, it's extremely rare. And if you like, for example, here it have 4 special sub-skills. And if you got, I would say, a 4th special sub-skill move is basically impossible without a cheat engine, and not mentioning if you have all 5 together. But you don't need to be min-maxed to that much when you are in a standard playthrough. I would say if you have 3 of them, which is really very good already, and 2 of them, which is already enough for you to, happily go through your realm and defeating the big bosses in chaos and everything. And apart from the move, you can also find some other attack from other mind skills. For example, usually in your mastery, so basically so-called crit mind skill, the 5th sub-skill here, when maximum vitality reaches 220k, your attack will increase another 902. You can have this kind of sub-skills coming in your mastery, but I think it can only appear once, and it can be maximum vitality or maximum MP or focus, reach a certain value. And similarly, you probably can find a similar sub-skill from your divine power as well. So for example, here in the 4th one, when the 5th stat reaches 880, attack will increase by 902. I think not every single element's divine power can have this kind of thing. The best divine power, in order just to flatly increase your attack value, is fire, because it can have the sub-skill that it will increase your attack based on how much fire stat point you get, and it will give you additional attacks. But yeah, with all of them, move, mastery, divine power, min-maxed, at the end of the game, you might get, if you actually use another special sub-skill from here, another 902, I might get, to 18k. And 18k here also coming from the fact that I'm having this tavern buff. So a tavern buff basically is this called Mighty Strength. It lasts 3 months usually. There are 2 things I want to talk about. One thing is it can actually stack between different regions. So for example, I have this one that attack plus 1k. This is from the Chiyo region, so the 5th region. And I also have this one attack plus 300. That's from the Muxian region. So if you add all of them together, it does give you more attack. And to get those buffs, this is probably common knowledge, but in case there are some new players, you need to go to a town and go to tavern, and you drink alcohol, and you drink most expensive one, so Mary drink, and you can see, if you put your mouth there, you can see that it grants a chance to give you Mighty Strength, or Robust Body, or Light-Hearted Feather. It sometimes can be really frustrating when you just want one of those effects and it's just not giving you, which is one part which I don't really like about this game. So the RNG, there are too many RNGs. But anyways, this is probably the easiest way for a newer player, just grant you a temporal attack value. Alright, and apart from this, there's something else. Yeah, so of course, every time when you break through each realm, you probably want to choose, not necessarily, but probably, because I will mention what the exceptions at the end of the game, you want to choose the best, rarity materials and choose the highest, way to break through, because those materials will also grant you some stats. For example, I actually have one set of materials, like from soul formation to nothing. So, like, if I use all 5 orange rarity one, it will usually give you better attack values, because if you put on mouse on of them, you'll see each of them does give you a certain stats. So you want those stats to be as high as possible. And one important thing is probably during the time when you go from nothing to soul. When you break through, you need to get this breeze of soul, and in principle you can get higher attack than 400. I mean, one here, it's very difficult because it's again RNG dependent. You probably only get 300 something, but if you're lower at 350, just do it again. I would say 380 is already pretty good attack value there, and 400 is quite rare. I mean, when I say you do this, it's mainly because if you have higher attack when you are at at your certain realms, for example, 400 to 360, that's only 440 difference. It doesn't really matter that much, especially at transcendent one now, 17k. But when you are at, for example, enlightenment, your maximum attack is maybe 4k something, then the 40 value can make a slight difference as well. So if you want to min-max, try to refresh this one as well. And yeah, so attack values, yes, most important thing to how to increase damage, because when you attack is less than the defense of either NPC. For example, this NPC have 7k defense, and if I'm at enlightenment, I have 4k attack, I can only do 1 damage yearly. There is a way to go around, which is true damage build. You can find the video in my description as well. But yeah, usually if you attack it lower, you only do 1 damage. So you really want to increase your attack, because everything damage you do is based on your attack value, and they are very important. Okay, and the second point, which I will actually briefly talk about, is how to reduce your cooldown, because attack is a one-time thing, and you want to reduce, and you are using either your spiritual or martial skill or your special skill. You need to reduce the cooldown so that it can deal damage more frequently. And the main way of reducing cooldown, there are 2 things. One is, usually in the skill itself, you can always find, this one is a special one they don't have, but for example this one, you can always find certain sub-skill that, for example here, the 10th one. This skill's cooldown minus 0.2 seconds. Notice that the cooldown of the skill itself is 0.8 seconds. So this thing will reduce it from 0.8 to 0.6. And you need to learn and comprehend that sub-skill to maximum. Similarly, you should have the same kind of cooldown reduction, flat reduction sub-skills for your spiritual or martial skill, and for your special skill, which is usually minus 3 seconds. And your motion skill, another minus 3 seconds, if you see the 4th one. And also your ultimate, which is normally minus 12 seconds. So the 6th one, this skill's cooldown minus 12 seconds. So apart from these flat reductions, you also need to find percentage reductions in your mind skill, and they are always in your mastery, so crit mind menu. And they are also always like this. Basically, if you look at the 4th, the 6th, the 8th, and the 10th one. So if a legendary or mythic special skill / ultimate skill / martial spiritual skill / motion skill is equipped, the skill's cooldown minus 25%. That's maximum you can get. Again, it is very, very rare you can find all four sub-skills in one same mastery. I would say it's basically impossible. So if you want, but again, this is only really needed if you are doing a 0 CD build for special skill. Otherwise, I mean, there are certain builds like water sword, fire sword stuff where you want your, motion skill cooldown is minus 25% more. But because this is so unreliable, you are always using a sword mastery, because sword mastery is a special one. It can give you another, so the last one, as you can see here, the 12th one, cooldown motion skill minus 50%. And this can only appear in sword mastery, and it is additional on top of the standard minus 25%. And without a sword mastery, your motion skill cooldown can never be less than, let's say, 5 seconds. And remember this fact, and I will use this fact to tell you why I don't think Fairy Flame is a bug or abuse. And the other way to reduce your cooldown, is for your martial cooldown, you can use martial skill specification fate, which I don't have here, but I have showed you in many other characters. It's basically 1, 2, 3, the third level will grant you minus 40% martial skill cooldown. And for special skills, you need to use blood power. Blood spirit third, which give you minus 20% cooldown. And again, find those in my Zero CD tutorial. You can also find some skill cooldowns in like 10% from a wandering cloud set effect, if you look at the rightmost part. And also from your Dao Mind. If you are not using Nameless, but some different Dao Mind, you can have 10% cooldown. But that's it. This is very brief. Now, third part. Talk about main part about damage amplifications. So damage amplification is something not really shown on your attack value, but they can be very important. So for example, when you're looking at your move mind skill, you might already see, for example, the last two sub-skills here. Like every time an ally dies, your damage will increase by 2%, or every 100 times you deal damage, your damage will increase by 2%, so up to 16%. So these will be calculated when you actually do damage, but they won't show on your attack values. But they are important, especially, and I think it's not the first time I say it, but it is quite important. When you have a fire secret menu, go to the last sub-skill, for every Fairy Flame generated, your damage will increase by 80% for 5 seconds. And as I mentioned before in the fire video, that you can generate Fairy Flames easily, like 20 Fairy Flames, from your one single fire motion skill, and that will make 8%, 20 times. It's not 20 times, but 1.08. 820's power, which makes you more than 5 times more damage. And I would say this is actually the best damage amplifier, and it's so good that some of the people in the community might think it's an abuse, and that's mainly because this damage amplification 5 seconds can be refreshed within the 5 seconds. And I mentioned before, even now I think it is a bit too much, because if you can generate more Fairy Flame within the 5 seconds, you can infinitely increase your damage. However, I think the problem here, it is not about Fairy Flame itself. Instead, it's actually about sword mastery. The fact that it can allow you to reduce your motion skill cooldown too much. And let's do a simple math. A standard motion skill usually have 13.3 second cooldown. You might have minus 3, so 13 becomes around 10 seconds. If you have a good mastery, a standard one without the minus 50 here, minus 25% makes 10 seconds into 7.5 seconds. And 7.5 seconds is not enough for you to refresh your Fairy Flame within 5 seconds. Even if you have Blood Spirit 3, which is 3 slots of Rewrite Destinies, you still cannot bring it down to 5 seconds. And practically you need your cooldown of emotion skill to be much less than 5 seconds, because the disappearance of the Firefox takes around 1 second, even if you have no sub-skill of increase the range of the Firefox. Remember that, because usually you will have that sub-skill to increase your range of your Firefox, and when you comprehend that thing to maximum, it will take you much longer to actually generate Fairy Flame. So without a sword mastery, you can never refresh that easily the Fairy Flames within 5 seconds to achieve the effect to infinite damage amplification. So the problem is many in here, in sword mastery. And you might ask, like, why do you think this refreshing of the fairy flame is not an issue? And that's because if you look at, I mean, I'm only showing one single fire special skill here, but if you look at my video, you will see many of the fire special skills. They can generate fairy flames, but they only generate fairy flames either one out of time, or like here, when you moved 150 movement, it generated one fairy flame. So this is actually a much slower way of generating fairy flames, and if you cannot really refresh the thing, in 5 seconds you cannot generate enough fairy flames to make the fire build actually work. And that is my point here, that I think the developers, they designed this effect based on the fact that they want to use a fire user to generate enough fairy flame from Firefox and the fire ultimate at flat damage boost, and then you can make your damage higher and higher by continuously refreshing this limit, 5 second limits, by using your special skills. And that's how fire builds were intended to work. Now, the problem is when you combine with the sword mastery, you can simply just spamming your motion skills. And this will basically makes your entire fairy flames infinitely being refreshed within 5 seconds. But this is probably outside what the developers was thinking. And so that itself might be a problem. But right now, because people have found out this way, and just like the wind motion combined again with a sword mastery, that can achieve you infinite wind motion, which also was considered as a bug, and the developer just didn't change it. Probably they haven't thought a way to change this mastery thing. In my opinion, it's very simple. Just the cooldown of the motion skills minus 50%. Just make it only work with sword motion skill. And in that way, it will solve all the problem. You won't have the fairy flame infinite one. You won't have the infinite tornado from your wind motion. But that will break a lot of people's saves, because they have their fire sword or water sword, which they don't really want to change it. They don't want the death to change it. So that is the problem there. But anyways, for damage amplification, fairy flames combined with fire motion is still the best way. There's also, obviously, if you are using a lightning build, a lightning secret menu with a lightning special skill can also allow you to increase your damage within 1 minute by how many lightning bolt you deal with. And you can find that in my lightning tutorial video. And so I already mentioned attack, cooldown, and damage amplification. So next one, which I have mentioned from there and here and there in my videos, but I never really talked about it explicitly, that is the critical damage rate. So to understand that, first we need to know what is critical damage. So to show that, I will go to an arena. And okay, am I using the correct view? No, not really. So you see, most of the damage I deal with is in red, but sometimes there is a yellow one, and says crit, and that is critical damage. And usually critical damage has so how much the critical damage compared to the euro damage you deal with, that is depending on two things. One thing is your critical damage rate. So here, this critical damage, so 790% for me right now, and also the critical defense rate of the opponent, so 400% for me. But if I'm attacking myself, the critical damage rate will be 390. So 790 minus 400 equal to 390 percentage. So basically, if I do 1000 damage to myself, and when I crit, it will do 3900 damage. And this is why you want to increase your critical damage rate. And there are very, very rare resources in this game can make you to increase your critical damage rate. One thing you can get it is from your divine power, and especially a fist one. And I think a blade one can also give you good critical damage rate increase, but the fist one is the best, and here is why. So first thing, if you look at 6 sub-skill, when your fist stat reaches 950, your crit damage will increase 190%. Then there's also the 8th one. When there's only one enemy, your crit damage will increase by another 140%. And finally, the most important one, the 10th one. Every time you infinite stun, your crit damage will increase 110% for 4 seconds. And it's every time you make stun. And now you might be thinking, yes, if you are using a fist martial skill with bone fracture, for example this one, you have a chance to stun the enemy every time you deal damage to it. And you basically can do the stun very easily and make this, increase your critical damage to a maximum 500%. So maximum 500% is your crit damage minus the enemy's critical defense. The residual value, maximum is 500%. Okay, so basically, if you're using a fist divine power and you're constantly stunning the enemy, you can very fast increase, make your critical damage to a maximum 500%, and that is quite important. So the way to do this, one thing is obviously, bone fracture, a fist. And also, this is why you see in many of my videos I'm using a fist ultimate, the shield one, because this will, stun your opponent as well. Another way for you to get the stun can be done is using here I'm just to show you here, a Xuangui Soul, because the 3rd one and the 5th one you can see here. In battle, when you receive 5% damage, you will stun the enemy for 1 second. And also when this is triggered, you can also drop in those rocks and stun the enemy for another 2 seconds. So these are the 3 easiest ways you can get to make stun people. Of course, if you are using finger build, your stun is even easier. And that can very fast increase your quick damage rate when you are using a fist divine power. And another way to increase your critical damage is, I am putting your artifact spirit, and that is 九成. This is why 九成is actually very important but very much underestimated among the community. Maybe not among Chinese community because they know this very well. It's the fact that here. So there's this talent of 九成that which allows you, every time you recover HP, your crit rate will increase by 1% up to 45%. This is another 45% of crit damage increase, which is quite good. And also by coming 九成itself allows I can't really see it right now, but yeah, it allows you to reduce it allows you to increase your crit rate when it's coming out and it's using its skill. It allows you to increase as well. So this is another way. And finally, again, it's in your breakthrough materials. So this is go back to the previous very beginning. I said, you want to choose a higher severity of breakthrough material to increase your attack, which is not always the case, because usually there's one purple material give you 30% of critical damage. And if you are building a critical damage rate build, you want to use this one purple material to replace one of them, the orange one with the least attack and without critical damage rate. For example, this one have defense, no attack, but it has 30% critical damage. So you don't want to replace this. Instead, you might want to replace this one, which only have 11 attack. And you are trading, 30% critical damage to 11 attack, which most of the time is a good deal, because attack you can always increase later, but critical damage rate, you don't get that much chance to increase it. And one important thing which I think I should mention before is that if you are using a critical damage build, you probably want a Murderous Rise, because this gives you a guaranteed crit. And another thing is, even if you are not using a critical damage rate build, with Murderous Rise, every time you crit, the minimum, the final crit rate is at least 2. So 2 here means basically the final residue, so your rate divided minus enemy's defense, will at least be 200% to 2 times damage when this was triggered. So that's what makes Murder's Rise the best damage set destiny ever, and it's basically good for almost every single build. And that will be it. I hope this, well, I was expecting this to be a short one, but didn't expect it to take 30 minutes again. But yeah, I hope you like this video, and again, finally, the same thing, if you like this video, please consider to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and see you next time.